Well, welcome, Karen. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you going today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic.
Great.
It's morning for me. I'm in Melbourne. Where are you coming in from, Karen?
I'm actually in Michigan today. It's evening for me.
Evening. And you're well and truly in summer today in Michigan?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
raining today, but definitely
Okay,
summer.
fantastic. I love these cross hemisphere conversations because when you live in Australia, you talk about the north as the northern hemisphere. So we go
hmm
all the way up the globe, which is what we're doing today. And Karen, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I know you've got so much of a wealth of knowledge and information based on your experience, but also just the years of thinking about streamlining operations and working with teams. I know that people are really important to you. So just to sort of give our listeners a bit of a context, could you give us a brief on what is it that you have really cared about for the last few decades in your career, and what is it that's led you here today?
Okay. Well, a little bit of background on me. I mean, I specialize in operational excellence. I've been in operations, oh gosh, well over 30 years. Hate to date myself, but that's really the fact. But I believe that, being in operations, and I started out in the military a long time ago in the 80s. So again, dating myself. But when I got out of the military, which I was a mechanic in the military, so I started out with machines, have a very deep love for the inner workings of machines and how things work. And of course, that transpired into technology. But I stayed with machines and how they interact with technology. So I absolutely love that aspect of operations, how things tick, right? But what you find along the way is that along with machines and technology, there's people, and in order to make those things work, you need people, right? And people, we need people to make things work. So I have an innate love for the human factor in everything. So I found that my success was really driven by the people. So I just love how all of that technology and mechanical aspect and how the people work. And so I would say probably my number one factor of success is really the people and getting them to work together, getting them to work better, more efficient, throughout the process of my many years in the business. I connect with the people right away, and then we connect with the technology, and then we make things work together. So that's really kind of, what's brought me to where I am today. I was a COO at my last organization, a very large nonprofit organization where I sent a lot of stuff out to people who put things in their mailbox, got them out and threw them away. But that's really the fact of mail. I'm in the mailing industry, print and mail, been in there for a long time. But I decided I really wanted to, go out on my own and help people. I have a love for also helping people. And so I've helped a lot of small businesses. I consult. That's what I do now. I have my own consulting firm. And so that's kind of what I do now.
That's wonderful. And let's talk a little bit about print and mail industry because that is an industry that has been disrupted radically. Lots of change in that industry, obviously, and from what I can gather and understand, it's also an industry that had really excelled in Australia. We were talking about this earlier. In Australia, we have government private industry
hmm
partnerships now around mail services, but I know in the US, you were saying it's totally government owned. So you had that government overlay as well. So tell me a little bit about your experience in being in that industry. Why is it that operational excellence emerges from those conditions that I've just talked about?
Well, I think, being in the industry for obviously, over 30 years, I think we've seen so much transition in that sector of, print and mail from, printing to mailing. The mailing aspect of it, when you're talking about the United States Postal Service, obviously, we have partnered with private sectors to deliver mail because just the delivery of it, if you think about it, just putting a stamp on it and delivering it anywhere in the country is difficult. I mean, let's look at a 25-cent stamp and how far are you going to deliver a piece, right? It's just not, it's not tangible. It's not a tangible, delivery point. So I think, partnering with like companies like FedEx or DHL or, even Amazon to deliver some of these products is really something that I think the government has done. They've also had shared services, obviously, to share their value add through partners, mailers, large mailers, where we have shared services as well to be better together. I think that was the ultimate plan, be better together, where we would do more, they would do less. That's kind of how it works. That's kind of what we talk about in the mailing industry all the time. But we've evolved into what we are today, we've 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 talked a lot about reducing waste, becoming more efficient, having better ways to do things. We've combined our technologies. We've gone from large scale printing companies to having more white paper factories. We've scaled down a lot of our businesses, combined and collaborated to be who we are today. We've really, really done a good job of trying to do more with less. We continue to be asked to do more with less. And now, even as postal costs continue to rise, we're still being asked to do more with less, which is why you're seeing less of us as mailers out there, because the costs are just high. The
Mm.
number one cost of doing a mail piece is the postage. And so it is very difficult to continue to do that. But we are still out there. They keep saying paper is going to go away. Disagree. Direct mail is still a big deal out there. We're still going to market it. You're still going to
Mm.
find us in your mailbox, but uh, I don't think it's going to disappear in my lifetime. That's for sure.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's very interesting. So I guess those forces have really created an environment where you have to be lean, you have to remove waste, and because you're really working on very low margins in terms of efficiency and profitability,
Absolutely.
unlike other industries. Yeah, exactly. And there's also a community service as well aspect, and a necessary service as well. So it's a national service.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I agree.
very interesting forces. And that's why I wanted to kind of pause there, because I think there are forces on that industry that perhaps other industries aren't quite in the maelstrom about. However, I think there are some things coming down the force pipeline for other industries that will mean radical change and needing to make sure that we have that operational excellence as well, particularly from changes related to our digital presence and AI, etc. Because I think that
Yeah.
that really does provide a top-down, incredible force for change in relation to capability, in relation to the way in which we work, etc. So, Karen, you were talking about the importance of people. So let's go back to that. And I know you did a TED talk on connection capital. Tell me a little bit about
Did
that.
did. Connection capital is really the idea of, how you can really, for me, it's really about my story, but also in relationship to how I how we really look at the value of what everyone brings to the table, right? So we all have value. So without looking at, where you come from, or, what you look like, or what your beliefs are, or any of those external factors, we all bring to the table value. And so through those values, if you ever belong to it, and I always say this, if you ever belong to a really good team that had awesome synergy, you understand the value of having all those different factors, right? We all have gifts, right? Every one of us has a gift and we bring it to the table. And so what is your gift? What are you bringing to the table? How can we help each other? And so whenever I enter any new place, and I've entered a lot of them, I always look around, I listen, I open up myself to whatever it is that someone has to offer. And I say, okay, well, let's throw that on the table. Let's see what we can learn from that. And I want to learn too. So I think that's really what the what the connection capital is for me. It's like understanding that everyone has something to offer, and I'm interested. You have a story, I have a story. Let's talk. Let's see what we have to offer each other.
And in your career, can you think of a time where particularly that was important, or where did that insight come from? Maybe is the question.
I don't know where I would have to say probably the insight that everyone has a story came from my life story, which is really that I had a story and I wanted and I always felt like I had a voice, right? Like I just didn't know how to really present that voice. It's kind of like, why isn't anybody listening? You're running, you just you feel like you're pushing a rock uphill and you don't know how to do it right. And so, when you have a story like that, you tend to listen to other people's stories because you want your story, to be heard. And so I loved people so much. It was like, "Oh, I love your story," like, and so I'm a great listener. And so I learned from that. And I had one person that believed in me. That's really the basis of probably the beginning of my story. And this one guy he was my greatest mentor. I loved him so much. And he believed in me. And he said, "You're going to do great things." And he taught me and I listened, and so it became the basis of my leadership style. So after that, I just said, you know what? I want to be him, not him, but I want to be a him. I want to inspire people like he inspired me. So I started on a journey to teach myself how to do that with other people. So that's really, I wanted to be that person. I wanted to inspire.
And Karen, in the early years, so you before you got that mentoring, what were the barriers that you were facing? Do you mind sharing those?
Yeah. I mean, I lots of barriers. I mean, I was a woman, I grew up my father passed away when I was very young. My mother had to go to work. This is all in my TED Talk. So if you ever listen, you'll get to hear my story, but bits of it. So I grew up with three older brothers, and which wasn't easy, but I learned a lot of skills that would help me maneuver through life, right? My brothers taught me a lot of things, but they were a lot of things that you learn in how to be tough, right? Which is awesome. And so so I was a kid who learned how to, play baseball. I was a kid who learned how to do the tough things. So I was a mechanic in the military. That was what I did. It was like I wanted to be a mechanic. That's not what a girl does. So the fun part about that is that when you're in there, you got to learn how to be tough. You have to have thick skin. Everything that I did, I didn't know that I couldn't do those things.
Mm,
I say this with all intent. I didn't know I wasn't smart. I wasn't smart enough to know girls don't do that. I wasn't smart enough to go into the world and say, they don't become mechanics in the military. They don't fix trucks. Girls don't try out for baseball or football. Girls don't do these things. So I just did them. And so the barriers that I had were, I was a woman in a man's world. So I was 20 by the time I think I was 22 when I started to lead my first company. And so I was already pushing that rock. And back then,
yeah.
that was tough. And so I was fighting those barriers. I was fighting
Mm,
barriers but but in my mind, they weren't barriers. They were like, okay, why doesn't this work? So I was asking those
yes.
questions like, why can't I do that? Tell me why
Mm,
I can't do that.
mm,
And so those are the barriers.
mm,
And so I just didn't know any better. And I also didn't really, it's funny because I had this conflict of, I just needed someone to believe in me. And when I met this guy who believed in me, I just took off. I was like, okay, so all right. He showed me my future. He said,
yeah.
you've got a future and I'm going to give you a path. And I was
Mm,
like, okay, that's all I needed. Let me put my running shoes on. I'm off. So I just took off.
yeah.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
was pretty
And I
cool.
know and I know that you have a real passion for inspiring other people now, and
I do.
particularly women and young people. Tell me a little bit about the work you do in that space.
So I'm a coach, a life coach. I'm a health coach. I'm an instructor, and I'm also a mentor for a college in for women in leadership. And so I also mentor small business owners. So any chance I get to help or mentor anyone, I will do it. Literally, I think I spend almost all of my free time doing it. But to be honest, my passion is women in business, any women, young women, any women that are interested in learning how to maneuver through this very difficult world. It
Mm,
is my passion. I do love the idea that, where we women are supporting women is something that's very
mm,
near and dear to me because I feel like we don't do it enough. I feel like we spend a lot of time breaking each other down when we really should be lifting each other up. So women, in my opinion, are awesome, and I think we should be stating that all the time, supporting each other. That's
And you were, because you were, I think your experience has been that, with that mentoring, you had a mentor yourself that
I
propelled you.
did.
But before that, I think you were saying that you probably had that confidence to try things because you didn't have the mindset that says, I can't do that because I'm a woman, or I can't do that because I'm not smart enough. Whereas some women, I think, aren't lucky enough not to have that mindset because through socialization, they end up in that imposter syndrome
Yeah.
mindset. And even if it's at a more unconscious level. And so there's that self-talk around, well, of course I can't do that because, I don't have the skills for that. Or of course I'll fail there because, because I don't have
Yeah.
A, B, and C. So there's a self-doubt there. And do you see that in the women that you mentor
A
now?
lot.
Is that still prevalent?
Yeah, a lot, a lot. And, when I was younger, to be very honest, growing up without parents was difficult. It was,
Mm,
no one really, I think there's a misconception, like, other kids would say, oh, it must be so cool to grow up without parents, right? I mean, no rules, no nothing. But what you don't get is you don't get encouragement or nurturing, right? No one comes to your games, or no one says, "Hey, how was your grades?" Or no one says, there's no real encouragement to do anything. So what I ended up doing was just kind of trying to find my way. It was a lot of me
yes.
trying to find my way. So I would sign up for a lot of things to try to find, I called it my family away from family, because you're just trying to be part of a team, you're trying to be part of something. And so I spent a lot of time second guessing myself. And because I didn't have that encouragement of my grades, I was actually voted least likely to succeed in school,
Wow.
which was a thing back then. And it's not a thing now, but
Do that anymore?
they don't, but it's kind of funny. And I really was a straight D student because
Wow.
no
Yeah.
one cared. Why would I
Yeah.
care? No one cared. I
Yeah.
didn't even know I was smart until someone showed me my way. So, and
Mm-mm.
even today, I tell my children, who are not children, they're in their 30s, but I tell them, I'm so glad that you got to experience intelligence. Like, you have intelligence. You know that you're smart. You know that you're beautiful. You know that you're kind.
Mm.
Someone you have that, that love and that nurturing around you, because, I didn't know it. Like, if someone had said, "Hey, you have this potential, you have these things,"
Yeah.
maybe something would have been different in my life. I don't
Mm.
know, but I wouldn't change it now. But I do feel like, you know, when I see women now, I feel like there's too much of society dictating who we should
Mhm.
be versus us saying, "This is who I can be." And embracing the person that we are and that we know we are, and just going for that, not being pigeonholed into, this is what I should be because society says this is what I should
Yes.
be, or someone in school said this is who I should be, or this is, you're too bossy, or you shouldn't be this, or you shouldn't be that.
Yes.
I'm of the opinion that I can be whoever I want to be as
Mm.
long as I'm okay with it. And I want to choose that. I want to
Mm.
choose that. And that's the kind of freedom and independence that we should have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Karen. And I feel that, that resonates with me as well. And I think that, because unfortunately, I think younger women are still experiencing all of those things. I wish we were further along. I don't think we are. And not to say that there aren't, hasn't been progress, but,
I
we are
agree.
still very much in a world that favors a more masculine way of doing things. And you're almost a living proof that women can do those masculine things. Absolutely,
Absolutely.
women can do anything, but it's about owning, your own path, your own capability. Because
Agree.
I think because we devalue that. Women hear that young girls to early in there and all the way all through to early adulthood don't get enough reinforcement about the things that really they bring that are special qualities there. So that's interesting. I guess I'm interested too to understand in your career, what was it about the career that you had that really led you to a focus on people? So I can see that you've got that value base that you come into that, but then you go into a career, particularly in print and mail, that's very process
Mhm.
orientated, very, you were leading operations. So what was it there that kept you going back to people? Was it that the environment, or was it just a value that you brought to the organization?
I think, um, again, going back to, like, I guess my first mentor and the impact that he had on me, I wanted to have an impact on other people. So here's what I figured. If I was so the first time I got promoted, this is a long, long time ago. This is actually a pretty funny story. In my mind, it's funny. So when I first got promoted, I got promoted to a lead position, and I had 4 people that I was in charge of. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, I can influence 4 people. And so my next step was a supervisor. And if I was a supervisor, I could influence 6 people. And so in my mind, leadership then was about influence. It wasn't about anything else. It really wasn't about the money and to be honest, I always tell people the money just meant my children and my family got better stuff. For me, it was really about how could I influence more people? How could I become a better version of me? And how could I make leadership a better version of it? Meaning that and I would always say this to the people that I really trusted, my circle, if this chair changes me, then remove me from the chair
Mm,
because I don't want to forget where I came from.
yeah.
So my leadership style was always very open and free in the sense of you can say whatever you need to say to me. I am not above you. I will roll up my sleeves and work with you. You can speak to me. I don't even speak about my title or anything. We are in this together. My position here means I have more authority and more ability to influence what you need. But we need each other to be successful. So I rely on you to help me support you in what you need to be successful. That is my position here. It is not me, Karen, the COO. It is me, Karen, here to support you, get you what you need to help you help us be successful. And so I never wanted to change that. And so that was how I wanted to influence others. I wanted them to believe in me. I wanted them to go to battle with me. I wanted them to, support me, to help support them. And I think I was successful at that.
Most people find it difficult to scale that. So, yes, when you're leading 4 people, you can do that.
Yes.
When you're leading 6 people, you can do that. When you're leading hundreds or thousands of people,
Yeah,
more difficult. What was
definitely.
your approach to that?
The same. And believe it or not, it's crazy, and I know it. And I'll give you one story where I actually got in trouble for it, which was pretty funny. And again, I just have to laugh because the people who know me know this about me. I will put myself out there. I went into a company. I ran multiple facilities. The culture was awful. Like people were just angry. And so I was asked to repair the culture, and they just didn't believe in anything. And so I went there. I put my personal cell phone number on the board, and I said, "If you don't believe in anything, believe in me." And I said, "If anything I say here changes when I leave here, because I have to go to my other sites," I said, "you call me. Call this number day or night." And they did. And eventually, eventually when the culture got better, the calls got less.
Mm-mm.
But I knew that would happen. They needed something to believe in, and that's all it takes. It takes that one step in the right direction to get people to believe in something, and once they believe in you, They start to believe in the company, then they start to believe in the process, then they start to believe in everything. So that's how you build the culture, but they have to
Yeah.
believe in something first, right?
Mm-mm.
And sometimes that takes you doing it. And it's a sacrifice, but to me, if I were on the floor, I would love that. And that's how I approach everything. Like, I would love a leader like that.
Yes.
So that's how I approach it.
Because and from the leadership perspective, it's a pull rather than a push. You're pulling people to you. You're being true to your word, or and you're demonstrating that, because I can imagine you would have got some really annoying calls.
I did. I did. I got some crazy calls sometimes, and I
Yeah.
still do. I everywhere I go, I still do. Even as a consultant, I am just as close to people as a
Yeah.
consultant as I was
Yeah.
as a business leader. Yes.
Mm-mm. Yeah, wonderful, Karen. So before we finish up, I wanted to get a sense from you in terms of what are your maybe, we also go top five, but it could be three to five. What are the key messages that you think women in leadership need to understand to balance their life, to be great leaders? We talked about focusing on people and that connection between people. Are there any other sort of messages that you have on repeat in a way, as you're mentoring others?
I think for women in business, I think that, and people hear this all the time because it's such a buzzword for women in leadership, but I really need to say it. I think being authentic is so important for women in leadership.
Mm,
And this is why it's really important for everybody, but for women
mm,
especially. I think women have different styles in leadership. We all do, right? But women have this innate desire to feel like they either need to be overly assertive to get what they need because of, the male factor or the dominant factor. And I don't think that's necessary. And sometimes they need to be overly feminine.
mm.
And
Yeah.
those two things, and if that is you being authentic, that is absolutely cool. But
Yes.
if you
Yes.
need, but if you feel like you need to do it one way or the other, it is going to come off as though that is not authentic. And
Yeah.
I've met both. And I've had women come to me and say, "How do you get respect from men
Mm,
all the time? How do you get respect from men?" And I
mm.
always answer it in two ways. One, be yourself. It
Yeah.
does not matter. To me, it does not matter what you wear, how much makeup you wear, what you
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Be yourself and know your stuff. As long as you know your stuff, it doesn't matter what
Mm,
you're talking about. You're talking
mm-mm.
about parts on an engine in a car. Know your stuff because they will sniff out whether you know it or not. And please do not overly dramatize one way or the other because you think that's what they want or need. They will respect it. Women will respect it. Men will respect it. Everyone will respect it. Speak what you know.
Mm.
And that is so, so true.
Because you can see that women, and I've done it in my career too. There was a point where I thought, I can't do this anymore, but particularly that early socialization and also a little bit of imposter syndrome, chip on my
Yes.
shoulder.
Yep.
I believed I had to be in a position where I was seeking approval too much. I
Mhm.
was trying to please others around me, and I was hyper vigilant because when you're part of a marginalized
Yep.
group, you are hyper vigilant. So you're looking, or I was scanning the room, looking at reactions. Has what I said landed? If it hadn't landed, I'd shift it. And so I didn't realize that, but that made me look like I was not standing for anything. So
Mhm.
therefore, how can you respect me when I keep flip flopping, or I'm not
Mhm.
standing? I don't have an opinion. I'm not standing for what I believe, and I'm not relaying what I believe with confidence because I'm trying to gauge the room. You're on a hiding to nothing in that situation. And it wasn't until I got a bit more experience in leadership that I began to sit in my own kind of comfortable space, because it doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve others to be trying to seek the approval of everyone in the room because A, you can't, what's in their head is none of my business.
Mhm.
I can control is what's
Yes.
in my head, right?
Yes, yes, and that's so true, and that's the other thing too is that, it is we are by nature, we are social nurturers, and so we do like that aspect of who we are, and that's okay too. Like for me, when I go into a meeting, I'm one of those people that I'm not someone who will say something just to say it.
Mm-mm.
Whereas I know other people that are. And I go, look, to me, that's who I am. I won't say anything unless I feel like I need to say it. Whereas if you feel like, because you're social, you're like a lot of people are very social. If you want to say things, you should say them. That is you being
Yeah.
authentic. But we do also seek approval because of just who we are. And my bad habit is I say I'm sorry a lot. And I had to learn that is who I am, and I stopped apologizing for
Mm.
apologizing. So I was like, that's just who I am. And so if I say I'm sorry, it's because it's who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. So it's just one of those things that becomes, you know, the who that we are, and we just have
Yeah.
to embrace it and love it because that's who we are,
Yeah. Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Karen, we've very closely run out of time, but before we go, is there anything that perhaps we haven't talked about? Any question I haven't asked you that you'd like to comment on?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I'm thrilled to be on here. I love just chatting and talking about things in general. Like I said, operational excellence is my thing, but I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all the people that have supported me along the way, including my
Mm.
family, my children. And, if anybody gets an opportunity, just jump on and listen to my TED Talk. You'll get a little bite of my background, and that would be awesome. But other than that, thank you for having me. It's amazing.
No, it's my pleasure, Karen. And we'll put the link to your TED Talk on the show notes,
Awesome.
so we'll make sure that
Awesome.
that's there. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank
Really
you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
spending time. Okay, bye.
Bye.